It's time for the Flashpoint 2 playoffs. Get to the point. Our little pre-show here at Flashpoint. And we can get to the point quickly today because there's no Thorin on the desk. It's Alan and Potter instead. You guys are capable of getting to the point, correct?
I hope so. I'm a bit nervous today, Monty. These predictions were a nightmare on these two games. They kept me up all night pretty much trying to sort these ones out. So hopefully I got them right and I'm not doing the forfeit.
Yeah, we'll see if you stayed up all night for no reason. So who are your predictions?
I took Mad Lions and OG because I've lost faith in MIBR and Big.
I appreciate that. That was the same reason I picked both of those same teams. How about you, Potter?
I went with Big and I went with Lions, but Alan is right. I was up all night thinking even the map vetoes are kind of all over the place for MIBR. A lot of decision making they have to go through for this series. So a lot of stuff still up in the air for me.
Yeah, I think this is probably the most difficult day of predictions we've had yet.
Yeah.
And two of these teams will be going home. We will be down to our final four as of today. So with that said, let's take a look at our delightful Flashpoint format here at Flashpoint 2. We are in the bottom part. From November 30th through December 6th, that will be the double elimination playoffs. Every match is best of 3. Very exciting. We started with 12 teams in 3 groups. They did play a GSL best of 3 double elimination bracket. And then 2 teams that are no longer with us, named Envy and Dignitas Vi, did end up with the last 2 playoff seeds through our last chance qualifier. So exciting, the format. Everybody, so exciting. Let's take a look at our upper bracket here in the playoffs. As you can see, our winners final, a bit of a surprise with Virtus Pro sneaking in there. Not so much of a surprise that we saw Fnatic there, but maybe a little bit intriguing how they got there through MIBR, as OG was upset by MIBR in the first round of the quarterfinals. Now, as we look at our losers bracket, full of losers, there we are. Envy, Dignitas Vi, they were eliminated as the ultimate losers of our playoffs. And the second round of losers will be eliminated today. We are playing those matches you see on your screen, MIBR versus Mad Lions and Big versus OG. Obviously, Big versus OG, maybe we would have thought that was a losers final. Probably weren't thinking it was going to be this early on in the lower bracket.
I think actually the craziest part is that one of these teams in this first game of MIBR and Mad Lions will outplace one of OG and Big. And coming into the tournament, I don't think anybody would have predicted that. So it's been a pretty wild ride in the playoffs so far.
Yeah, especially how Big kind of got into that position yesterday in that series versus VP. I thought this is so bizarre. It's like the battle of the supports. You got Sanji carrying over for VP. You got Tizian just top fragging for the Big side. The superstars, they're quiet. They didn't show up for Searson, for Xantares, even Tabson. Quiet on that side. Today, I am expecting a different looking Big coming out the gate, though.
I hope you're right for the sake of your predictions, Potter, because I don't, when I see Tizian popping off, I think OG is winning this match. That's what I think, personally. That's my take on the whole current Big situation. They should have lost to Envy.
Yep.
They did lose their next match. They will lose today.
And even if you add in the group final against MIBR, that was so close in that game. So if you add those series together, 3 series in a row of pretty shaky form. And the thing for me that's put me against Big going into that OG matchup is that I do think they have issues playing under pressure now that I've seen them multiple times. Because in my head, I think this team has such good fundamentals. They're so complete. Map pool's great. I mean, we just see them in these series falling apart, losing scenarios where they should be winning. So that's why I took OG. Even though OG, I don't think they have the greatest, composure of any of the teams in this tournament. But I do think Valde, Alexi B, MBK, these sort of players, they are clutch. They played massive tournaments. And I think they will bring home the bacon in that match.
I agree. I'm glad we got your thoughts on that because you guys are not doing that matchup later today, so we'll keep those in mind as we discuss our predictions a little bit later on. But first, we got a little game to play, and that is New Stars of CSGO. And what are Alan and Potter's opinions on the longevity of some of our newer players' careers here at Flashpoint? Up first, even though he's been in a little bit of a slump as of late, the new Latvian blood, it is Yekindar from Virtus Pro. He is the latest addition to the Virtus Pro lineup and has reinvigorated them in many ways. Even though we've seen them primarily recently competing in the CIS region, they have now officially made our winners bracket final. They are now officially top 3 here at Flashpoint 2. third place, $100,000 is the worst they can do. So how much of that was Yekindar's performance? And do you think this kid has a long career in front of him?
Oh, he absolutely does. I don't think it's any mistake that as soon as Yekindar came into the mix and joined this VP roster, that's when we saw the resurgence coming out of VP. Look, the beginning of 2020, it was rough for VP. Even towards the end of 2019, they were struggling. James trying to figure out a way to play that perfect style of CS that he so loves. But Yekindar, he's bringing a different kind of flair, and that young blood, that enthusiasm, the eagerness that he shows, whether he's in those interviews or whether he's in that server, he wants to get involved and he wants to show exactly how good he is. And I think that new blood coming into the mix for VP, it's just really revitalized them. It's pushed them forward. When you think about the old guys on the team, sometimes you go through the motions, practice can get a little boring, you kind of lose that hunger and drive. You get a new zoomer into the mix that just wants to practice 16 hours a day, every day. He shows up, he's eager, he's willing. That enthusiasm, it carries you a long way into the team culture.
Alan, what's your judgment of your fellow Zoomer?
I think with Yekindar, if you'd asked me who he was 4 months ago or so, I would have said I had no idea, to be honest. But yep, precisely. Same trajectory. Yeah, so
it's good. You guys are on the up and up.
So yeah, at least from that angle, we never would have expected him to just be playing at such a high individual level. If you remember, actually, Monty, earlier on in the tournament, we talked about the Esperanto confirmation bias conundrum. I actually think Yekindar has a bigger confirmation bias problem than probably any other player in Counter-Strike right now, actually.
Okay.
Because he's so skilled and he's got such great individual plays. When he plays the weaker teams, and when I'm talking weaker, we're still talking bottom end, top 20 sort of teams, he can destroy them individually, he can open up rounds, he get them in great positions. But then when he gets in man advantage scenarios, when he gets his team in great positions, he can throw a lot of rounds through not understanding the team game. And this isn't surprising when he's only had so many months at the top level of kind of professional play. So hopefully in a year, 2 years, he can build up these fundamentals. But I think it's important at the moment to not conflate potential in 2 years with how he's playing at the moment. I think some people, I'll call out Maui actually, I think he does conflate how this player is going to be in that kind of in 2 years' time with now.
So, Maui, he gets very emotional about players.
He does. We saw the shower painting with Yekindar. But yeah, with Yekindar, at least for his experience, incredible player, actually, if you consider that. But for a player like him, it's 2-3 years, really. I think we've got to be looking for him to really develop.
I think that is a very sobering take, the cold shower on the Yekindar hype that we all needed, right? We'll take the cold shower now so we have better performance when we expect Yekindar later, right? It works in that regard.
I mean, fans overhyping players actually destroys players in a position like Yekindar. If he goes into a big series and all the fans saying, you're going to destroy them, you're going to be incredible, then he might just fall apart with all that pressure coming onto him.
Let's shift our focus now to a different player who I think has had more star performances at the top level, but is still relatively young, and that's Brollan from Fnatic. This guy has been really good in the playoffs so far. We've seen him clutching out a lot of rounds, helping Fnatic to reach that spot alongside Virtus Pro in our winners bracket final. So what are your takes now on Brollan?
I think Brollan is a really exciting piece of this team. When you had the old lineup without Brollan, I think when he came into the team, he instantly changed the look of it, and they really needed a younger player with a different look at the game, potentially with some of those older players, JW, Flusher, these sort of players. They might have been locked in how they used to play in 14, 15, 16. But Brollan is the new generation. He plays more aggressive. Aim is absolutely unreal, as you're seeing in some of these clips. So Brollan, a very exciting player. And as we talked about on the desk yesterday, the best thing about Brollan is how this team uses him. They have a very good sense for how to use a young player. Take him out of the positions where there's loads of decision making, put him instead into the spots where he can emphasize his aim, emphasize his individual ability, put the decision making on the more experienced players.
And what's so cool that we're talking about Brollan right after Yekindar is that Brollan was exactly in Yekindar's position about 2 years ago. So that timeline that Alan just alluded to, it's perfectly illustrated. As long as Yekindar kind of goes through the motions that kind of Brollan did, now when we speak of Brollan, we talk about the consistency. Mr. Consistent on a lineup filled with superstars. That is impressive in and of itself. So Brollan, man, he's getting better and better as he marinates in this Fnatic squad.
And finally, we have one player who is the most controversial of this list, and it is a new player that we really only had the chance to see here at Flashpoint, and that is going to be Heap from Dignitas Vi, scouted directly out of the ladder and with no previous professional experience. Were you guys impressed? Do you think this has a glimmer of potential maybe, or does he need to quietly drop out of the professional scene?
Well, potential is really hard to describe and talk about, right? It's such a broad thing, but he's booming with it. He's got the potential. You can see that Dignitas are trying to figure out the best way to utilize his skill, but he absolutely has that mechanical skill. Now, his reactions, his responses in those high pressure moments, depending on what his opponent throws at him, he doesn't react in the most optimal decision making every time. We've seen him at Nuke, at ramp, you know, taking those land angles, taking really punishing headshot angles, and he's not good for it every time. So as long as he works on that consistent factor and figures out more comfortable ways that he can be of value round by round to his squad, then he can start working on how to be more deadly in that server. So right now it's still those small glimpses of potential, but I think it's looking good for the Dig squad.
I mean, it's also that when we look at these other two players, not only have the other two had significantly more time to develop, but they also haven't had an IGL that is transitioning back into that role like Freiburg is. I mean, Jame and Golden have been in there for a longer period of time, so they know how to better utilize their players, are more comfortable making those calls, right, Alan?
I mean, just in terms of just outside of Golden, the amount of experience on that Fnatic lineup and in the organization as a whole, people like Khan behind them, coaching staff, all of these things added together will make that transition of coming from lower tiered plays and more kind of pugging competition into the top level of the professional level, make that transition much easier. With Heap, if you frame it in the context of very limited competitive experience at all, like really hasn't played in many teams, and total unknown factor, if you frame it in that way, very impressive actually at this tournament. It's probably performed much above what I would have expected. I think actually in like 1-on-X situations, he's looked pretty good, because in those cases, it's not so much about the team play, it's more about you can focus on yourself, how you play, isolating some fights, and he does pretty well in those scenarios. So with Heap, for what I would have expected with a player like him, much better, but it just feels like, what is this Dignitas team growing towards? What can Heap add beyond just fragging power? Can he add, you know, great team play, great comms? Can he help out a bomb site? And it just feels like we haven't got a very well-rounded roster beyond some of the more experienced players of Freiburg and Forest.
I think it's a very sober take once again, Alan, on the Heap situation. We've got to move on and talk about our first match of the day, but first we do have a raffle here from our partners over at Pinnacle, pinnacle.com/raffle. Week 3, look at that beautiful knife. It's nice and evenly black. You could be carrying that in your Counter-Strike games. Mr. James Bardolph, he selected these knives for you because he is a gentleman of taste and culture. So if you head over to that link, you can deposit 10 euros in your Pinnacle account and be eligible for that raffle. Remember that you have to be 18 years or older or of legal betting age in your country. So don't try it if you're not. All right, guys, thank you very much. We're going to come back with the preview of our first match in just a few minutes, and that'll be Mad Lions versus MIBR.
After the break.
MIBR versus
Mad Lions at Mad Lion.
only on Flashpoint.